Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Kerrigan. I'm a partner here at Holland & Hart. And I'm going to start off with a brief personal story that I think symbolizes this firm's commitment to education. I came to this firm as a lateral a little more than 10 years ago, and I'd been here all of 2 months when I approached the then chair of the management committee, Ann Castle. Said, Ann, I know you barely know me, but I want to run for public office. I want to run for the University of Colorado Board of Regents. And I promise you I'll still work hard and I'll be a good lawyer here. And her reaction was remarkable. She said, Michael, that's exactly what we want our lawyers, our staff to be doing, to serving the public and supporting the causes that this firm and its founders believe in. And I'm here to offer my personal support, and just let me start with a disclaimer that Holland & Hart is not endorsing Amendment 66. The firm does not get involved in ballot issues. The lunch today is being paid entirely by Bob Conroy, who is a retired partner and a big supporter of Amendment 66. So there's no formal endorsement. But I'm here just to tell you as a colleague why I'm supporting Amendment 66. And it is for a very pragmatic reason. Yes, there's more taxes, and yes, that will affect some of us. But the fact is, we have got to invest in our schools, and that will ultimately be better for business, be better for our kids and our clients. Because I know from the university, having a terrific educational system literally attracts employers, attracts businesses. And Colorado was losing that battle. And Amendment 66 is a tremendous opportunity to turn that around. I passed around the column that was in yesterday's New York Times talking about what a bold, innovative proposal this is. So I want to thank you all for making time to hear about it. And if you do come away deciding you're going to support this ballot initiative, please spread the word. The ballot numbers are being tracked because it's ballot by mail, and we have a lot of work to do. And there's literally years of reform and work to get us to the point we are here. And we're lucky to have with us today a true leader in Colorado's education community. Lisa Weil is a former general counsel for Governor Romer. And Lisa has had a tremendous legal career, but then has gone on and has also worked for Senator Bob Kerrey and Tim Wirth. She's a graduate of the University of Colorado and Yale Law School. And despite what she could be doing in the private sector to advance her legal career, she has dedicated her career to Great Education Colorado, which is a wonderful bipartisan nonprofit that focuses on school reform and delivering better results for all of our kids, our schools, and ultimately our communities. So Lisa, please come up and join us. She's going to tell us about Amendment 66, and as we reserve lots of time for questions, and we will get you out of here before 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. That's a nice introduction. I really am so honored and to have this opportunity to speak to you today, and I really appreciate you coming in and finding out more about Amendment 66. We're just 5 days away from the election, and this really is a crossroads for Colorado as we decide what kind of state we want to be living in 10 or 15 years from now. So as Mike said, we are Great Education Colorado is a nonpartisan statewide grassroots organization, and we advocate for improved education, improved outcomes, better achievement for our schools, our colleges, and our universities. We actually believe that we've got to provide that excellence in education all the way from preschool through higher education. I'm joined here by my colleague Sue Catterall, and at the end of this, if you are so inspired to help out, to learn more about great education for the long term or to do something about Amendment 66, Sue is fully equipped to give you your marching orders. So we have been working on the issue of resources in our K-12 system for quite some time, Great Education Colorado. We have spent a lot of time going around the state to getting legislators on tours to see what's going on around the state. We have told stories about what the cuts of the last several years have done to our kids, what that impact has been, because we haven't been making those investments. And we decided, knowing that 66 was coming down the pike, we needed to really broaden our conversation. What we thought was missing in Colorado is a bigger context about what is it that we're trying to accomplish. It's not enough to just say we want better education, we want more funding for education. We got to figure out what it is we're trying to accomplish. And so we were inspired by our 14ers here in Colorado, and so we created this presentation, which is called Colorado's Climb. And so the first question that we've got is, where is it that we're trying to go? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? Not just are we trying to pass Amendment 66, what do we want for our state? And over the 10 years that I've been working on this, three things have sort of come out to be what the goals are for the people who care about public education, who care about the future. One is that we want opportunities for every student to succeed, not just in the workplace, which is incredibly important, but in their communities, to be real active citizens. And we want it for every student, no matter where they live, no matter how they learn, no matter what their zip code is. That's what the folks that we've been talking to, that's what we all aspire to, is to make sure that education, which is the key to opportunity, is equally available to all kids, that we meet them where they are. The second is that we want the highest achievement for our students and the smallest achievement gaps, to have that equality again, that equal opportunity, so that we can get rid of the gaps between kids who are from backgrounds with poverty and those who are not, between racial groups. We want to have those smallest achievement gaps and the highest achievement. And I think sometimes we think, well, that's the province that, Massachusetts, Maryland, those states are going to have the highest achievement. There is no reason that Colorado shouldn't be competitive with the state, all the states in this nation, and all the countries. So that's an aspiration. We need to think about how we're going to climb that mountain. And finally, it's about having the best prepared and most innovative workforce, just like Michael was talking about. What brings people, what brings businesses to Colorado, what really inspires economic development is knowing that there's a workplace, a workforce that's ready for the 21st century. We know what it takes to get these things. We need quality early childhood education. When kids come to school not ready to learn, when there's that gap starting when they're 5 years old, it is so hard to overcome. We know what works. We know that $1 of preschool can save as much as $17 in the future, both in terms of improving their earning, the earning potential of kids, and reducing crime, reducing remedial issues. And so we know that's really important. Highly qualified, really well-supported teachers make the difference. If you have kids, you know this is true. If you were a kid, you know this is true. You can think about the teacher who made the difference and really helped you move forward. That individual attention, again, meeting kids where they are, special needs, gifted and talented, how they learn. We need to meet kids where they are. That sometimes means smaller classes, but it's really the individual attention that we're looking for. A broad curriculum, instead of narrowing, we're creating the citizens of the future. And so we've got to have that broad curriculum and the kinds of things that draw kids in to really loving school. And technology, available to all kids, because we're preparing kids for jobs that don't even exist yet, but we know they're going to be technology-based, and having technology have and have-nots is so dangerous for our kids, or it blocks their opportunity. So this is the story. We call them ED for obvious reasons. This is the story of Colorado, of where we've been and where we want to go and how we're going to get there. So you can't, generalize too much about where we've been, but this is sort of the story of who Ed is and has been for the last few decades, really. We are traditionally low in funding here in Colorado, as you'll see, but we've been very proactive in reform. That article that Michael passed out from the New York Times talks about some of the reforms that have been put in place in Colorado, and Colorado has always sort of been at the envelope. We are actually very high in return on investment. We're a very efficient state when it comes to education. The Chamber of Commerce, the United States Chamber of Commerce, puts Colorado at 6th in sort of bang for the buck in achievement per dollar spent. But we have been very challenged by the achievement gaps that I was talking about. So that's where we've been, and we've sort of been stumbling along at this low level of funding, but achieving beyond what we should probably expect for the dollars that we're spending because we're so efficient. And then a not so funny thing happened about 6 years ago, and that's when the bottom fell out with the recession. So what did that look like? We've been losing ground nationally in funding for over 30 years, really. So what you're seeing here is that dark line across the top, the horizontal line, is the national average in per pupil spending, and the red line is how Colorado compares to it. That goes from 1970 all the way to about the most recent data in 2010. And so you can see we've been falling farther and farther behind. As a matter of fact, now, if you adjust for regional cost differences, we're $2,500 below the national average in per pupil funding. So when you think about a school of 1,000 kids, that's $2.5 million more would be spent in that school if Colorado were getting a C. So over time, we've been falling backwards. This just shows you how we've been spending in the last few years. So we peaked in FY 09-10 in per pupil, that's average per pupil funding in Colorado, and we took a pretty big hit there. So you have to go back about 6 years. What we're spending now is about what we were spending 6 years ago without adjusting for inflation. And so what we have now, when you think about what districts buy, they buy health insurance. They buy transportation and energy. So their inflation has been going up, their costs have been going up, they have more at-risk kids because of the economy going down, and at the same time, we're spending what we did 6 years ago without adjusting for inflation. We have been losing ground against our neighbors. This just shows how Colorado per pupil funding compares to the states surrounding us. We have been losing ground on class size. When you talk about the importance of individual attention, this just shows 1 year from the 9-10 to the 10-11 school year. We added 9,100 students to the classrooms of Colorado, and we lost 500 teachers. And it happened again the next year. So that's the kind of opportunities that we've been losing. And speaking of opportunities lost, and this is obviously not true of any particular district, but the idea of the electives, the art, the music, the vocational education. A lot of those programs have been the first to cut because the districts have had to focus on the basics. And so those things that grab kids, the athletics, the electives, the music, the art, that makes kids want to come to school, that engages their minds and their hearts, those have been disappearing. And so as a result, our kids have been losing out over these last few years, especially with larger classes, shorter school weeks and years, when all the research shows that we should be expanding and extending our school years. We've actually been shrinking them. Technology that it is just not keeping up. Reduced graduation requirements. We have districts that are asking students in high school to take less classes because they don't have enough teachers. And those kids then have to compete against the kids in those states that are surrounding us and Massachusetts without having been able to take a full course load because they've been asked not to. Less hands-on education, just less opportunities in general. Now, the good news is, and I'm not going to, I used to just depress people and then walk away, so there's good news today. The good news is, the first good news is that we had a safety net that stopped us from falling into what we call the pit of lost opportunity. And what is that safety net? You all are probably a part of it in one way or another. We've got teachers who are taking on more classes, taking on more kids, and taking money out of their pocket to buy books and put whatever needs to go on the walls. We've got parents, many of you I'm sure, who have been buying wrapping paper and just writing checks and volunteering to make sure there's more than one kid or one adult in a classroom of 30, 35 kids. The silent auctions, the fees, the transportation fees, which have been increasing, and the athletic fees and book fees, et cetera, et cetera. We've had voters. And here in Denver and in Jefferson County and in St. Vrain and a number of districts around here, we have had voters step in to pass mill levies. And the important thing to know here is, remember all those graphs I showed you where the numbers are going down. What these mill levies have been doing increasingly is just backfilling what we've lost from the state. So instead of being able to say, you know, we're at this level and we're going to pass a mill and we'll be able to do this much more for our kids, what those mills have been is, well, the state has pulled back on what they're giving us, and so these mill levies have been part of the safety net instead of really pushing our kids up. And of course, we've had businesses like Holland and Hart, like businesses throughout Denver and the metro area who step up and help pass the mills or raise money for schools. But that safety net is what stopped kids from falling farther. Now the good news starts. The economy has turned around a little bit. And for the first time last year, we made a little bit of headway. We had a session that wasn't the sort of business as usual, do as little as possible for kids. We actually made some progress, and what you see there is Ed is climbing up on something called 2013 YOS. What that was the coalition put together by Great Ed and 170 other organizations, where we're saying 2013 needs to be the year of the student. It can't be business as usual. We have to start focusing on what we've done to the next generation to promote not just the kids, but the economy. And so what we did put together 170 organizations, really broad, coalition from the faith community, the Urban League, to the Rural Schools Caucus, special education to gifted and talented, the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. We put together these groups to say, look, it's time to do right by our kids, and we brought in almost 10,000 individuals to support it too. And what we did was we brought over 300 people to the Capitol. We had over 50 face-to-face meetings, or face-to-face meetings with over 50 legislators, I should say, because some of them got hit a number of times. We had 27,000 emails going into and phone calls going into the legislature saying we got to do something about this, and we made some progress. We made some really important progress. We got $20 million more for special education. Colorado ranks somewhere around 49th in how we fund our special education. We got 3,200 new preschool slots. And that is so important. You know, that's 3,200 kids who are going to start the next year ready to learn. And if we didn't do that, that's 3,200 kids who would never have gotten preschool. That's the wonderful, amazing thing about investing in preschool. We got about 200, actually maybe more like $400 million, depending on the economy, deposited into the state education fund that can be used in the future for probably one-time uses like buying a bus for a rural school district who just can't afford it, deferred maintenance for curriculum, technology. 30 million more for higher education, additional. And the last thing that happened was that there was a focus on school finance, so that there was this bill, Senate Bill 213, that set the stage for a new school finance system that will go into effect only if we put money into it, and that's where Amendment 66 comes from. So that was a good year. That was about as good a year as we've had in a long time. And grassroots is really important, and that's why later, you know, you're going to have an opportunity to sign up for our emails so that you can be part of the grassroots effort to make sure that we stay on top of the legislature and keep them accountable. But we're in Colorado, which means that the legislature can't do it alone. The legislature can't get us up that mountain. We need help, and we need help from the voters, and so that's where Amendment 66 comes in. This, by the way, was done by a retired art teacher who came up with this 66 thing. I just love that. Just so cute. So that's where we come to Amendment 66. The legislature can't do this without the voters. And so what does Amendment 66 do? Put it most simply, after years of cutting, this is our opportunity to do more for our students. This is the only opportunity ahead of us to do more for our students. This is a really important crossroads moment for us. It does not happen all that often because we are the deciders. It takes a lot to put this conversation in front of the voters. This year it's taking the campaign of somewhere between $7 and $10 million to make sure that this is a conversation that gets at the water cooler, that everybody can sort of think about what our values are. It's a value proposition. What kind of Colorado do we want, and what are we willing to do to get there? And so that's what Amendment 66 puts in front of us. It would provide preschool for all at-risk kids. Last year we added 3,200 slots. This would create 25,000 slots for 3- and 4-year-olds who want it, but all at-risk kids would have the opportunity to quality preschool. Full-day kindergarten for all kids who want it. It's not mandatory, but right now, if you want full-day kindergarten for your child, people are paying somewhere around $400, $450 a month for full-day kindergarten. The state only funds half-day now. More resources for special needs kids, the ones who need more attention to meet the proficiency standards and to really excel and to be met where they are. So it's special needs, gifted and talented, English language learners, and at risk. It's more resources available to districts to figure out locally what the smartest thing to do, because we don't want the capital to be dictating to every district what the most important thing is after these years of cuts and deciding how to hurt kids least. It's locally going to be decided, how do we start helping kids most as we go forward, and that money can be used for individual attention, restoring art and music, for reducing class size. Each district will make those decisions because, frankly, as you'll see, what we're putting in Amendment 66 doesn't get us all the way to the top of that summit. That's something we're going to have to keep working on. The dollars will be spent transparently with more accountability than we've ever seen before. A website that can take you all the way to the school level to see how these dollars are being spent. These are resources that are going to be applied to those reforms. I said that Colorado's really been out there in reforms, and that New York Times article talks about it. We've passed all this stuff in the last 4 or 5 years. Teacher effectiveness, a whole new set of standards. We're about to adopt the Common Core standards. Accountability reform, where it really matters. If your district isn't, or your school isn't meeting proficiency standards, there are real consequences, and we keep putting these reforms forward without actually applying the resources. So this is an opportunity to start doing this. And this is investing in opportunity. It's a tax increase, as Michael said. If we were to increase our income tax, it would be the first time that income taxes in this state have been raised in over 20 years. And as a matter of fact, for the first $75,000 of federal taxable income, we go to a 5% rate. Not range. We go to the 5% rate. That is what we were paying in taxes. That was the rate in 2000 before we actually cut taxes. It does have it's a two-tier. Now, one thing that's important is you see that it's your income up to $75,000 is taxed at 5%. It's not $75,000 of income, but federal taxable income after you've taken out deductions. There is a calculator on the campaign website. If you go to coloradocommits.com, there's a calculator that will figure out for you how much you will be spending. How much for the median family, it's 33 cents a day, $11, $12 a month. But you need to find this out for yourself because, as I said, this is a value proposition. What kind of Colorado do we want? And what are we willing to pay for that? And so you can make that decision for yourself. Doesn't matter how much this thing raises totally. What matters is, where are you in this? And what do you think that it's worth to really improve education in Colorado? It would keep Colorado, even after we raise this tax, but the second rate above $75,000 would be 5.9%. The income above that is at 5.9%, and with that, we would still remain among the lowest tax states in the country. So again, I want to put that website up there, coloradocommits.com, so you would find out what it really means to you. So that's 66 in context of what's happening. Now, you'll see we're not at the summit. That's not going to get us to that point where we're the highest achieving state and we've got the best workforce. That's something we're going to have to keep working for. There is no chairlift to the summit. It's going to be a lot of work. But it's work that's worthwhile because, as Michael said, this is what generates long-term sustainable growth and vitality in an economy. So just to remember, what we're talking about is those 3 goals at the summit. To reach the summit, after Amendment 66, this is our marching up. I mean, I hate to think about what we have to do if 66 doesn't pass, because we're going to stay down there right just above that safety net. But we have to keep prioritizing education. We have to just continue to think about the reforms that we've made and how important they are, and to be as efficient as possible in using those dollars, which Amendment 66 actually has a lot of provisions. There will be reports that say, here's what's working, here's what's not. Districts, you might want to change your policies based on what you can see as working and best practices. We need to be as efficient as possible, which we've shown our schools have shown themselves to be very efficient, but we need to think about funding at the Capitol, we need to get our legislators to think about funding based on what our students need, not what happens to be available. And so that's, I don't know what happened there. I picked the wrong, well, I can't even move down if I wanted to. But the role of grassroots, and the reason that we're going to be asking you to sign up is because win or lose with Amendment 66, we have to keep making this a priority. And I would add higher education as a priority, that we have to stay at the legislature and keep the voice of the student there, keep the voice of the voters. If we pass this, and I sure hope we do, we need to be saying this is what we meant. And we need you to keep working toward this. Colorado is a work in progress, and we want to keep progressing. We want our kids to progress because all of us progress when they do. And so, it's grassroots to the rescue here. And the first mission is getting 66 passed. We made this a while ago, this presentation, and so a lot of these are gone. These commit to vote cards, they have gone out, they have come back. What's left is, as Michael said, spread the word. Telling people, get on Facebook. We have, you can get like Great Education Colorado on Facebook and share what we're putting out there. Easy ways to volunteer. Information about how to vote. This is a very different voting process this year. Every voter got a ballot in the mail. And you have until Friday to mail it, or Saturday morning is the absolute last. You should think about Friday as the last day to get that ballot in by mail. And then you got to find drop boxes or go to an election center. Our website and the campaign websites have ways to find out where to go. But it's really easy to not vote this time. There's no presidential election. There's no, the only ads on TV really are about Amendment 66. It's really easy to forget. But this is so critical. This is a crossroads for Colorado. We're not going to get this opportunity again. We are not going to have this chance. If there's something about 66 or Senate Bill 213 that isn't exactly what you would say, and it's not what I would personally write necessarily in all parts, but you have to say, which Colorado do I want to live in? And if we're trying to get to that summit, is a yes vote or a no vote going to take us closer? And that is a personal decision that we all have to make, but it's a personal decision that has ramifications for every kid, because we're not going to have this conversation again for a while. This is the time that we just have to do a gut check and say, what kind of Colorado do we want, and how are we going to finish Colorado's climb and make sure that our kids have the bright future they need to create the bright future that Colorado needs. So that's the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much for being here. Yes, sir.
Colorado has historically had a flat tax structure, and that makes it a very attractive place in terms of economic development. And I know that the chamber would prefer a flat tax structure be maintained. Why didn't the supporters of Amendment 66 continue the flat tax structure? Why the graduated tax?
Did you all hear that? But why a graduated tax instead of staying with the flat tax? This was a long set of conversations among the business community, and there is a huge amount of support from the business community for Amendment 66. The Colorado Forum, Dan Ritchie is sort of a leader of the business community, and so there has been support for this. Why not stick with the flat tax? Because to get to the amount that we're trying to, that can really make a difference and implement some of the reforms that we've put in place, the flat tax would have to go up a whole lot, and it would be very difficult for folks on the lower income scale. It is somewhat more popular to have a graduated income tax, and the premise that states with graduated that the business community, the business environment is seen as much better in states with flat taxes does not entirely play out. There's actually some, if you go to the Bell, and the Colorado Commits website has a link to it as well, there's comparisons of states' economic development and how well they're doing based on what their tax structures are. and there really does not make, you don't see a correlation between the flat tax states are doing much better than the taxes with the states with graduated income tax. It's more complicated than that, but what we do see time and time again is that educational attainment is the #1 component of a strong economic base. And so that's why I think a lot of those businesses have gone along. And while the chamber would have much preferred to see that flat tax remain, they have not opposed. They are neutral on this. They're not opposing it. I think there's a recognition that the taxes is something that you need to do if you want to have that educational base in that workforce that's prepared.
I think that might be a misrepresentation. They haven't opposed it, but they are very concerned about the graduate.
You're right. I don't want to misrepresent. I just know that they have not taken a stand against it, which I think is a strong statement as well. I answered every question. Yes, sir.
Are there aspects of Proposal 66 that are borrowed from other states that have been successful?
Aspects of 60. Well, I mean, I can point to preschool and full-day kindergarten as really very important investments that do pay off. So there are components of it. You know, it's the efficiency of Colorado that gives me confidence that these dollars are going to be used well. And so if you ask, is there a difference? Does funding in education make a difference? The answer is yes. Well-targeted resources make a difference. So there's that. We are sort of pushing the envelope. It's not, Amendment 66 itself is pretty simple. It's mostly about how the dollars flow. Senate Bill 213 and all the reforms that have been put in place that it's funding, there are parts of it that we're new to. There are parts that have been tried before. But we are sort of pushing the envelope and saying we're trying these reforms and we're putting the resources behind them, and we'll find out what works. And this is what another part of that accountability that I was talking about that I think is so effective, is that we're going to have these best practices reports, these return on investment reports, so that we can see what's working in the places that we're sort of blazing new ground, but also which curriculum is working. Which preschool programs are the most successful, so that these reports are not about bashing the districts who aren't doing the best over the head, but saying, look, you've got a district of about 10,000 kids, and this district has about 10,000 kids, a lot of the same kind of populations. They're doing this, and it's working really well. It's working better than what you've got. And so I think it's an upward cycle having that information. But nobody has done this quite the way that Colorado has, and nobody needs to, because Colorado is so unique in the way we're structured, our constitutional structure. We're always sort of out there on our own. Yes, sir.
I've heard some of the opponents to this amendment say that, contrary to some of the ads we've been seeing on TV, that there's no real that the new money will actually go into the classroom. Can you comment on that at all?
Sure.
Talk about the para.
Okay, so I'm going to make that a two-part question. So the question for those of you in the other places is, how do we know that the money's going to go where we want it to? This is sort of a business model when you think about it. The legislature has set standards. This is what we expect schools to do. We are now starting to put resources in and say, okay, we're applying resources. We've asked you to do this. We're giving you these resources. And then the last step is accountability. How are you doing it? How did you spend the money, and how are your outcomes? And we have to be very broad in thinking about our outcomes, because I'm not sure whether you can see an achievement point when you restore art and music, but restoring art and music has its own intrinsic value. So we have to be smart about how we do it. Are the dollars going to go in any particular direction? Will a particular district restore a particular program? It's not set up that way. And I think it's smart not to set it up that way, because if we said X% goes to music, X% goes to art, this percent goes to class size reduction, it may make sense in one district and be completely nonsensical in another. And so what you need to do with that business model is say we've set these standards, and the transparency is we will have a report every year on how the dollars that come from this particular tax will go into a trust fund, the State Education Achievement Fund, and there will be a report every year about where those dollars went, and then there's going to be websites where you can see how they spent those dollars. Is it self-enforcing? No, it just can't be. This is democracy. This is, so it's going to be parents. It's going to be Great Education Colorado. It's probably going to be the Independence Institute who are going to use those tools and say, go to your school board. If there needs to be tweaking at the legislature, go to the legislature, but say, these are where the dollars are going. That's not what we want. But these dollars are going to go to the classroom. They're following, not every dollar will go to the classroom. I'll tell you about where dollars may go into administration. We have, for the first time, Senate Bill 191, teacher effectiveness. Every teacher, every year, has to get a meaningful evaluation. That means not a drive-by, but a meaningful evaluation that's going to mean a lot to them. It is a really high-stakes thing for each teacher. We've had to lay off assistant principals all over the state. And so in order to improve our teaching force and to do what we've said, we want to make sure every teacher is effective, we may need to put more money into mentoring. We may need to put more money into professional development, which is that directly into the classroom? Well, I think it is. I want my son's teachers to be getting that kind of development. So there's going to, it's a nuanced thing. It is the most human and complicated endeavor we do, is trying to make sure that every student has the opportunities and the education that they need. And so we'll be able to see, and we'll have debates over, well, that money shouldn't, that any debate that happens in districts, because we care about our kids and we know everybody has their own experience and brings that to the table. But we'll know where those dollars go. And it'll be up to us as participants in a democracy to go to our school board and keep them accountable and say, we actually want different priorities. We're going to elect a different board. But the important thing is that kids are going to have the opportunity, new opportunities. We're going to reverse 5 years of cuts. Michael mentioned para, and I just wanted to was that going to be your question? Okay. You may have heard that people are saying these dollars, there's no guarantee these dollars are not going to be plowed into the para, which is the retirement system for our teachers and public employees, which, by the way, is exclusive. They are not covered by Social Security. I just think it's important for people to know that teachers who have para as their pensions do not have Social Security to fall back on. So the question is, are they going to use this for a para bailout? It is a really fast, quick soundbite. Oh, they can just use this money for para bailout. I love saying this. That is patently untrue. I mean, you guys, you work in a law firm, you're lawyers, I'm a lawyer, you know about wiggle words. It can't happen. The Constitution prevents it. The only way that these dollars go to para is that when you hire a new teacher, you need to start paying their benefits into para the way you pay their salary and their health care. So some of these dollars will go to para just the same way that when you hire somebody in Social Security, you pay into that retirement account as well. So that is just patently untrue. Yes? Okay, so the question is the Douglas County School Board, which is one of very few in the state that have voted opposed Amendment 66, but they have voted to oppose, and what they say is, and if you heard it that Douglas will lose money, that is simply not true. Douglas and every district will get more money if Amendment 66 passes. What they're saying is that, and you hear the opponents talk about Jeffco and wherever they're speaking, that it's not fair that Jeffco citizens will pay taxes and not 100% of the taxes that Douglas County residents or Jeffco residents will come back to them. And that's true, because we're being taxed as Coloradans. And so each individual is paying as a Coloradan. I grew up in Greeley. I went to school in Boulder. I have kids in Denver. I have friends in Jeffco. We love going up to the mountains, and it's true for all of you. You know people all over the state. You have connections all over the state. They're all our kids. We're all Colorado citizens. We experience the state as Colorado citizens. And so it is true that if you put these boundaries around a certain group of taxpayers, that maybe more money is going out than coming in. But if our goal, if that summit is about making sure that every child has opportunities regardless of how they learn, where they live, what their zip code is, then we have to do what we are doing, which is saying we are going to provide opportunities in communities where if they raise their taxes as much as they are legally allowed to do, they couldn't build one building. They couldn't hire 3 teachers. We have to be looking out for all of Colorado's kids, and that's what the current law is now. I mean, it doesn't change. The Douglas County and Jefferson County, when you pay taxes, it's not guaranteed that everything comes back exactly the same. So that doesn't, it's not actually changing anything, but it is a decision. Again, it's that value proposition. Do you only care about the kids in your district? Do you think that your community is only going to hire people who are educated in your schools? Or are we a mobile community where you know that the kids that you're the people that your kids are going to be working with in the future, the people who are going to be taking care of you in the future and making your change, they're not just the kids in your own district. We have to think broader. We have to make sure, if we believe that every student needs opportunity, we have to act as a state. I think that's it.
So, I promise to get you out by 1. It is 12 minutes before 1, which means any of you who are convinced by this wonderful pitch from Lisa, please use those 12 minutes to share what you learned today. And again, while the firm does not take a position on this ballot measure, Bob arranged this lunch so you could hear this perspective, and we appreciate you making time and appreciate your interest in this very important decision point that Colorado faces. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, Lisa.
Very much. And I should have taken one more minute. So Sue is here with, we've got, if you are so moved right now that you want to write a postcard to 10 or 20 people, to targeted voters, and say, you need to get your ballot in, Sue can help you. If you would like to get our emails in the future, and we would love for you to do it, we don't fill your email box. You'll get more in the next 10 days, then because it's such a high pressure time. But please sign up for our newsletters, and you can keep informed about how we're going to keep marching up that mountain after Tuesday. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. And thanks for watching.